We'll do our best with the Maimer, like everybody is. We're trying the best, verstehen. Okay, the Shaila is Gimel. The question was, the Madrege they were explaining of the Oitze, which is Oidin Sof, Lamarn Madin Ketz, is pre-Tzimtzum. We're talking pre-Tzimtzum, the big Chiddush of the Friedrich Rebbe, that even there's two Madreges, Hefresh Godel B'neiim, but it's all pre-Tzimtzum, it's all the Oidin Sof. So how does that accord with the whole Maimer's explanation of the Rav and the Talmud, Makif HaKorev, Makif HaRochek, and even bias in the Vush? It doesn't mention bias in the Vush, but certainly that moshel, because that model, so the Rav obviously is Lamaila, and the Makabel is us. So that's already, there's a mushpa, there's a Makabel, that's already a post-Tzimtzum model. And moreover, the whole model here is that Rav and the Talmud is Mashpia Seichel, and even the Makif HaRochek, which the Talmud will never get. He does get in some way, mind you, Moshel V'chidus, but more over, the Talmud knows, this much he knows, that it's a very deep seichel. There's a gilur to him, he doesn't comprehend it. But you know that it's a very, very deep seichel that can only come to him in a Moshel V'chidah. So he's aware that it's a seichel, so it means the whole relationship is already in post-Tzimtzum, which meaning a relationship within the Gedorim, within the parameters of creation. And yet, the whole beard of Eidin Sof, the Maryadin Katz, of the Friedrich Rebbe is speaking in Eidin Sof, pre-Tzimtzum. So how do we reconcile the Oitzer being pre-Tzimtzum and the Oitzer being all the things he spoke about in the Moshel, the Makif HaRochek, etc.? The Rav and Talmud. That's basically the question. As he says at the end of the Oitzer, even Makif HaRochek is not Lifnei Tzimtzum. It's not Lifnei Tzimtzum. It's still a Makif. And again, in Pashut language, the Talmud knows that the Rav is having a deep Askola, and Askola is his world. This is Askola beyond him. But it's the world of Askola, it's the world of Rav and Talmud, and he says, Hey Achreina, not Hey Rishoina. Okay, that's the Shaila. Let's try and understand the answer. Dalit. It's a long explanation, but basically the Rebbe is putting everything into context. Here's a fundamental Maimer to explain the first one. Okay, but first, a infusion of caffeine. So a sweeping review of the whole Maimer and putting everything into context. So in the earlier chapters, he explained, as it permeates, the earlier chapters, we're talking the lower darga. We're talking about how the Oitzer already comes down and permeates them durch b'chol seder shtal shalus or kafishin is boyer, as was explained. Chapter 13. He's going to get to, now the figure Rebbe takes us in this Prakim 16, 15, 16 to the Mocker. But let's get the whole story. So the earlier chapters, he was talking about the reach and the effect of the Eidin Sof, L'mayla Madan and Ketzel Matad in Tachlis. And he quotes, there's a big quote here now, the Masha Oimba Matad in Tachlis. This, that the Zohar says that it descends all the way down, unfathomably, literally. This is the reach, the revelation, infinite revelation, all the way down, ad la mata mata. So the Ein Sof descends all the way down to the lowest, further and lowest levels. Next quote, it's all quoting. That we're talking about. This is post Tzimtzum clearly, and all of the concealments in the Ishtalshalos of Biyah. Again, this is all quoting. Ubefrat kan b'shebo b'ribui tzimtzumim v'halomes v'steidim at sheicholi is dovar ha'hebech malikus tagamli. The Ein Sof comes down and is contracted to such a degree that it can give rise to that which is contrary to godliness. B'klippa v'sitra achra. So, in the earlier prakim, the lamata mata adin ketz is not talking the way it is in the Shoresh Lamayla. That's it. That's the chiddush of chapter 15, 16. 16 in particular. But the earlier prakim is talking about the reach, the revelation, which is itself expressive of its infinite nature, that it's able to create even Hashem even descends so low, such an infinite revelation that even to this world in Klippa. That's the Mata Adin Tachlis. Now, likewise, in the Ma'il Adin Ketz, the emphasis there was where we see its effect. What is that? Removed from us, concealed from us, after ascent after ascent, in an essential way beyond revelation. And he says, we talked about the square tzimtzum, the koyach hagvul, in the power of finite in its very deepest and highest level. Again, still quoting, the tzimtzum effect that we don't feel it, and even the Oid Pnimi, not removed from us. Even the divine revelation that is invested and creates and animates all creation. We don't even feel that either. Never mind the Oid itself. We don't even feel the revelation that comes with Tzimtzum. There are creations that don't feel that they come into existence because of a divine energy. And especially the concealments as it descends lower and lower. So the description there is, it's not 100% clear, friends, because the beginning is, he's talking about its removal from us above. But overall, it's best I can tell you, he just quoted it. Overall, the emphasis in the prakim after 15, 16 is Lamata mata din tachlis. No, even this is the second one. The Ma'il din Ketz. The conclusion is that till now the emphasis was not in the source Lamaila, but it's where we see it Lamata. In summary, it's a little bit clear, friends, because he starts off talking here about Helem Acher Helem, and that's Tzimtzum. That's the Ma'il Adin Ketz. That's the Tzimtzum. Lamata Adin Tachlis is its revelation, also through Tzimtzum, but still allowing revelation. The Ma'il Adin Ketz is such a concealment that there's no revelation at all. To tell you right, it's clear. It's not clear by me exactly, but the general message is clear, and that is that in the prakim till now we're not speaking the shoresh, but we're speaking its actual manifestation. So, what are the two inyanim? What was the emphasis of the two inyanim till now? The matamad in tachlis means all the way down to klip and sitra achra. Good. What's the Ma'il Adin Ketz? Helem Acher Helem. Tzimtzum there wasn't the Ein Sof. Ein Sof isn't felt. And even the Oid Pnimi L'cher, that's the Mata Adin Tachlis. V'gam b'chnes Oid Pnimi, Sho'er v'chayis ha'machayim, or maybe it's not, I don't know. Not clear to me. The overall point is, we're going to go further or we'll never finish. שכל זה כפי שאינדי למעלה למדד אין קץ נמשך בפועל בסדר השתלשלות. So the Mailimad in Ket spoken till now was the way it's drawn into Seder Ishtalshalos. And the conclusion is it's drawn in a way of tzimtzum and not felt. The shayrish of it is the Koyach HaGvul Bab, which is what we're talking about now in 15 and 16. But Lepoel, the tzimtzum as a result is we don't feel godliness. The Mailimad in Ketz Nimshach Lepoel B'Seish means, conclusion, if I'm understanding correctly, Mailimad in Ketz means tzimtzum, and that's Nimshach, concealment. And that's drawn in all Seder Shtalshus, because in all of Seder Shtalshus we don't feel godliness. That's the Maila Adin Ketz, the Tzimtzum that is effective throughout all of Shtalshus. And what's the Lamata Mata in Tachlis? That seems to point to what he produces, the creative ability. So, as I'm talking to you, I think this is what it means here. This is the previous program. This is not now. So what he's saying is, in summary, the matad in tachlis is the pel mamish of producing even klipper. All the Ein Sof continues to create endlessly even what's the matad in Ketz? Then all of these levels is concealed. Then even the Panimi is concealed. He remains forever removed from us because of the tzimtzum, even as he is present, mata engaging. And we'll say that again, that's the summary l'chayra of till now. These two statements of the Zohar are saying, on the one hand, godliness descends all the way down to create even klipper, and on the other hand, l'maylim adin ketz, in all of the levels, the Ein Sof remains completely concealed. Even the Pnimi, which is the tzimtzum that plays on the Ein Sof, that's invested in the Pnimidik way in creation. Not every created being feels that that's actually godliness. They feel they're alive, but not that it's a likus. So l'mayla madin ketz means that tzimtzum, we don't feel godliness. L'mata mata din tachlis means God's evidence, his creation, all the way down to the lowest level. Okay, so that's the pshat. At any rate, shakol zek kefi she'inyin, so till now he did speak about the reach, the address. The address. Now the address means all the way down and yet at all levels concealed. That's the Lamai Lamadid in Tachlis. Now, what's the chiddush of this perek? Excuse me. A little bit different, by the way, than the way the Rebbe said it in Basi Legani. In Basi Legani, he said that till now he was giving the address all the way up, all the way down, two different Mekoimas. Now he's a little bit of a different touch. In the two in Yonim, descends all the way down, but at every level concealed, not felt. A little bit different. We'll leave it to the big maskilim to try and figure this out. I'll call upon him. The chiddush of this parak is shegam b'Ein Sof kefishu ba'atzmoi. Not only the two properties that we've just been talking about till now, the descent to create even the lowest creation, and at every level his true infinite nature is concealed, is helem achar helem. The chiddush of this parak is that even in the source, in the Ein Sof itself, this is even in the Ein Sof. That's the chiddush of this perek. The Masher in Sof Lamad in Ketzu Oir HaNelam VaSosor She'ena BeGedre Gil VaMshacha. So that's the moshel of the Rav, but we still got to reconcile that because that's post Tzimtzum. But at any rate, the Ein Sof Lamaila is an essential. Again, as I put it in these words, God thinking about Himself, considering His own exclusivity atzmos, that's not begeder gilui. U'ma she'ein sof lamata in tachlis, u'b'chinas gilui ba'atzmosai, that's already a revelation. Pirush ba'atzmosai gufa b'chinas gilui ba'atzmika v'yochel. It's already this first step to otherness, a revelation within self, but pointing where? Outside of self. The revelation of Lamayla Madin Ketz, that is a concealed one. Again, God considering his essential being, that's not something given to revelation. But Lamata Adin Tachlis is God already beginning to reveal his infinite presence, and the direction it's pointing to is downwards. Whereas God considering himself the correct, the arrow is pointing upwards. That's the Ma'ad Tacht wegen sich. That's he's thinking about himself. That's the Ma'ad in Ketz. The Ma'ad in Tachlis is he's thinking about creation. He's thinking about it, so it's a very lofty level. It's Eid himself, but what's he thinking about? Revelation, Eid, otherness. That's an easy way to explain using imagery. L'mayad in tachlis, it's all God considering himself, considering creation. This way or that way. But the chiddush of these parakim are that we're talking about the Eid Sof itself. As opposed to the previous parakim, we're talking about actual manifestation in creation, infinitely down and infinitely concealed. Now, that's what chapter 16 is. So it goes on to say, it's kind of a summary, and again, the context of the entire Maimon. Excuse me. And the Gamba Bir should base on Yom the Maila, he base Prinas Makiv. So the explanation that he gave the parallel of the Moshel, not a Moshel, he said the two levels of Makiv, these two inyonim, of Lamayla, Lamata, Mata. Makiv HaKorov, so the lower one is the Nia Makiv, Shebegedre Gili Akoponim. Again, in the Moshel is the student doesn't get it now, but he will. Well, Makiv HaRochev, Shein Begedre Gili Klal, he'll never get it, it's not revealed. So Mevayet Chila. So first, the Fit Rebbe explains Inyan Zekef Fibur Seder Shtalshalus. The way it is in Seder Shtalshalus, Behemshech Labashnis Boy Prakmak Goydmim, as he was talking till now. He's talking about the not in the source, but the manifestation. All the way down, all the way concealed. At every level. So in that context, you have Makiv HaKorev and Makiv HaRochek. And that's why here, since we're talking about in Seder Shtalshalus, Ein Sof invested in Seder Shtalshalus, so he first explains the Mashal of Rav and Talmud, after the Rav is already now getting into the world of the Talmud, and explains, this is the lower level, this is Makiv HaKorev. In addition to what the student gets immediately, there's a depth that he senses that he doesn't get that hovers. He'll get to it. So this is Makiv HaKorev after 40 years. That's Bekir Valapnimius. Then there's a Seichel, it's so deep, will never be revealed. So these two Mesholim, Mosholim, the Maila Lamato, these are Taka Mesholim, not the way it is in the Shorish that Rebbe is answering. These are Mesholim for what he's been explaining till now. So our question was, that Rav and Talmud is post-Simson? Answer, yes. Because that's what we've been discussing till now. Is Ein Sof in its practical revelation. Again, all the way down, all the way concealed. But now he's adding in chapter Tezayin, Now he's going to apply this moshel even as it is in Oidin Sof Lifnei Tzimtzum. Yeah, but how, we just finished asking, but how can you have a Rav and Talmud dynamic Lifnei Tzimtzum, even in the Nimshal? Answer. Because even in the Rav relationship, if you a maskil umischakim la'atzmai ba'oimika inyan yoyser. The Frierdiker Rebbe added at the end of that perek that there's the seichel that the Rav will, the Talmud will never get, and especially he adds when the Rav himself is revealing depth of it within himself. Now, normally a revelation spills over and someone's going to get something. The Talmud will get something from it. Even that, as there's light, increasing light, as it were, within the Rav, the Talmud doesn't get that either. That's, he said, at the end of the Moshel, the end of the Perek. So what's that a Moshel for? That's a Moshel, that part, that's a Moshel of Lifnei Tzimtzum. As the Rav is increasing his depth and understanding of the Inyan, and this great revelation there, but completely eclipsed from the Talmud. This is a huge chiddush, friends, of this Maimer, huge. This is in brackets again, Lifnei shetzimtzum atzmoi kedei lashpia seichel Talmud. This is not that Rav he's engaging the Talmud, but in the pure Rav state. He's not even thinking about the Talmud. He's not even thinking of him to give you over something. He's learning himself. He's not teacher. This is not teacher. This is a marshal from Lifnei Tzimtzum, because he's not a teacher. He's not a mashpia. And what's going on? Light in his head, that's a marshal for Oidin Sof Lifnei Tzimtzum. As he goes on to say, in Bezer Gufa, Yesh Masha Gam Maskola V'Chochmas HaChadasha. So in this itself, so the new insights that the Rabbi is discovering, Shehiskil V'Yischakim Mashpia Atzma, that the Mashpia himself has, Yovim is the Efes Kotzela De Gili Mekabel. So even this is pre-Tzimtzum, since it's revelation, so through Tzimtzum it'll come to the Mekabel. Aval yesh ma'asher av maskil b'mukim yoyser. So that's the makif akorev. But what the Rav, the deeper, the makif arachik, shenim sheyachem Mekabel klal, shusosim etzem, it's completely beyond the world of the Talmud, completely hidden. V'hainu sheklolos mahusa oiru betnua dis almos. The whole revelation is concealed, it's within the Rav. So even that which is revealed by the Rav, it's concealed within him. Again, it's the Nimshal is the Eibishter thinking about himself. But even this he does give over. And how's it given over in Levushim? Okay, this is really a new point starting at I say. So the Rebbe's answer is, what was the Shaila? The Shaila was that Rav and Talmud is what is post-Tzimtzum. Again, he's talking about the Shoresh. The answer is that there's two levels to the Rav and Talmud dynamic. There is Taka, as he's a Rav and Mashpia, that's Taka post-Tzimtzum. But then as the Makif HaRochik, as he's thinking about things within himself, he's not a Rav there. He's not even thinking about the Talmud. And that's a moshel, therefore, for pre-Tzimtzum. Now it seems, so what's the two in Yonim there, pre-Tzimtzum? He's not thinking about the Talmud. He's Askolas for himself. So there's one level of Askola, which Efes Kotzeyu eventually will get to the Talmud. He's not thinking about it, but this will get to the Talmud. And then there's that which will never get to the Talmud, and that is, not a direct way, only through Hel and Vehester, and that is the Makif Harachik. I'm going to write this up, friends, with a shtickle chart after having walked through it myself a little bit further. It's not going to happen today. Because it seems that what he's saying here is because he does apply the moshel of the Rav to, it's all in Ois Tes Zayin. So let's get it clear. The audience of Lamar Ladin Katz, that's our scholars. Both of them, the Chiddush of the Rebbe is saying here is that both Lamar Ladin Katz and Adin Tachlis is the Rav thinking himself. So Lamar Ladin Tachlis is he's thinking himself, not thinking about the Talmud, so it's pre-Tzimtzum. But he's thinking about a kind of a scholar that through Tzimtzum in the end the Talmud can get it. The Chiddush of the Rebbe is saying here is there's a level of the Rav in this, the moshel that the Rebbe is saying is the Rav not as mashpia, not in his mind. He's in his own world. He's learning. The Rav is entitled to learn himself also sometimes. He's learning himself. There's two learnings. There's a learning which is learning himself, and right now it's beyond the Talmud, but eventually something the Talmud could get of that. And then there's learning on such a deep level within himself that's never given over, and only through a moshel. So if we can, so what's the chiddush of the answer? How can the Rav and Talmud, this is what emerges now, how can it be a moshel of Ein Sof pre-Tzimtzum? Answer, because we're talking about the Rav as he's thinking in his own self, not related to the Talmud. This is a huge revelation here in a nuance that's explained here in this ois. And therefore it's a moshel for Lifnei HaTzimtzum. And Lifnei HaTzimtzum itself is that which will eventually part of it, because it's oir, through Tzimtzum the Talmud will get, and then there's the Inyan Atzmi that the Talmud will never get. Again, in the Nimshal, God thinking about himself, that's never given to any quantifiable explanation, words or revelation. Okay, I'm going to make a shtickle chart of as I understand it, and we hope and pray that we're on the right path. It seems that's what he's saying. Gentlemen, are you following what I'm saying? Kind of. Yeah. I mean, I started off myself. What's the word? Groping in the darkness, but as we're learning and talking, so we have, it seems, some clarity. Again, the essence of this ois is that that both mishalim of the Rav apply also Lifnei HaTzimtzum, because he's not thinking about the Talmud in either of these scholars, not the concealed one or the revealed one. So that's a moshel of Lifnei HaTzimtzum. Indeed, it is. Okay, some more details need to be ironed out, but that seems to be the word. So as he's thinking, again, in the Nimshal, it's easy to understand. The Mailim Katz is God thinking about himself. Period. The Matan Tachlis is God thinking about outside of self. Direction is that way. What's the Nimshal and the Rav? Again, what I've suggested, and I've thrown it around, and some Mashbiim have agreed, that what does it mean that the Rav, it's like the Makif HaRochik is the Koyach HaMaskil. The way he thinks. And that he wants to give over to the Talmud too, but not directly in a moshel. But at any rate, putting that aside. So the moshel, it's all, the Rav is learning by himself. The Talmud's not around, he's going to teach him tomorrow. The Rav is learning, so he's not mashpia now. This is therefore Lifnei HaTzimtzum. And then he's learning, so there's one level of learning of understanding the Tosfos, whatever he's learning, that eventually the Talmud could appreciate this. And then there's essential level of learning that the Talmud will never be able to relate to. So that's all the moshel of Lifnei HaTzimtzum. That's all happening in the mind of the Rav, not as a mashpia. Lifnei HaTzimtzum. And what's the oitzer? The Eitz is that which the Rav is thinking about, which is completely beyond the ken completely of the Talmud. And even what is given over can't be given directly, it's given over in a moshel. And a moshel v'chida is going to explain the difference between a moshel and a riddle. And I'm suggesting, so what does he want to give over? What's he want the Talmud to have? He wants the Talmud to have his atzmius. So I'm not clear to explain this, but somehow I'm getting the moshel and the chida and the moshel contained there is the way that Rav thinks about haskolas, about all things. Much more essential is given in those stories. And Misholim than in an actual academia, an actual seichel. That's the oitze. Okay, we'll go a bit further. Ois hey. We'll finish the Maimah tomorrow, friends. Then our president will tell us what we're going to do next. Excuse me a second. So this higher level, which is not shaykh to the makabel, he wants to give that too. Again, it's like the koyach hamaskal. He wants to give himself in the deepest way. How does he give it over? In garments that are concealed. Parables, v'chidus, and riddles. It's just getting a story and a riddle. We don't see the great chacham and seichel. Especially a riddle. It just, the whole thing is confusing. That's the point of the riddle. And the stories of Torah, the same thing. This deep and lofty secrets, much more so than the manifested laws of Torah. In a nickel club, it's not seen at all. What's he giving? He's giving something which is not given to revelation. Again, it's the koyach hamaskal. Hamaskal means the whole orientation, perception, the way that Rav sees everything. To give over that essential state can only come boxed and concealed. And that it will continue Beis Hashem tomorrow. The whole Lubavitch is these very difficult, as you can see, difficult by modern. Everybody's struggling to try and understand. This one says this one says that. Abi mekochzach in the Rebbe Savort.
Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Have a wonderful day, everybody. I'm Sudas Tavis.